Welcome to the Red to Black podcast with your hosts, Werner and Mario. What's the number one mistake that most entrepreneurs and business people make when starting a business? Mario, what is it?
They don't think about the business model. They don't do any research about what is the operating income of the average business model within that space. They don't know what the value line investment survey is. They don't know that resource at the library. They can't walk down there. They choose not to walk down there and look at what does the average business in this space make as an operating margin. That's hugely beneficial. Before you start getting into any business, is understand what is the underlying economics.
Yeah, and why is that important? I remember when I got out of the military, and I've always had this dream of starting a business. I've started real estate businesses, but I always want to start like a media business from the ground up. And I remember when I was getting into these businesses, they would always ask you, well, what's your business model? And I didn't, be honest with you, man, it was such an enigma for me. And here's why. Because if you don't know accounting, how are you going to know a business model? All it requires is accounting A and B. That's accounting like beginners 1 and 2. That's all it requires. Understanding what's a balance sheet, what's a cash flow statement, what's an income statement, what's the purpose of each one. And then reading like The Intelligent Investor, which we talked about in a prior podcast, and reading like Howard Marks or Warren Buffett's memos, and looking at the types of investments that they go for. So for example, you have your accounting knowledge that you've just learned. Well, then you go, oh, well, what's a business model? It's a 20% model. But how most people teach it, like Entrepreneur Magazine, all these other magazines, is no fault of their own. They're coming from more of like kind of what's been done. This is what works, but not from, I would say, a core accounting focus. It's more of like, hey, it's the freemium model. It's the subscription model. Well, okay, those are all phenomenal models, but the question you have to ask yourself is, if I engage in that model in this subject or this topic, will I make a 20% margin? Because I don't care if you have a freemium or a subscription or whatever the heck else it is. If you don't have that set like bar where you're going, I'm going to do at least a 20% operating margin business, you have no metric. You're just going to be spinning your wheels. And that was a huge enigma for me. Mario, what are your thoughts?
Well, don't feel bad. Don't beat yourself up. We have two friends who graduated from the same business course or same business school, Wharton, at the same year, same time, and they both went into really, really difficult industries to try to squeak out little profits. So even if you had a Wharton MBA, apparently they don't teach you how to do the underlying economics of a business and see if it's actually profitable. And case in point is these airline CEOs. Those guys are working harder than anybody. They're working just as hard as the CEO of Coca-Cola or Oracle. But they're in a miserable business, and you can't fist fight. At the end of the day, it's very difficult to fist fight and win a business model that sucks.
Well, I would say Canadian Mike, that's what I'm going to name him. He went into a decent business, wasn't it? It was the beverage business. I won't name the name, but that was it wasn't a horrible business, but it was like
it's super low margin. That specific beverage business, the space that he went into is incredibly low margin. In fact, they're all competing on price, and there's just thousands and thousands.
Oh, interesting. So I stand corrected. Okay, so one went into the beverage space, which is low margin, one to the oil space, which are
a specific type of beverage, specific type
okay.
of beverage.
Got it. Yeah. So see, here's the thing. When you're growing up in life, you're told to do certain things. Go to high school. This is my whole route was basically go to high school, go to college, study business economics, not accounting because they didn't have it. Most schools don't have accounting. I wonder why. And then go into the military, whether it was, I had this dream of being a Navy SEAL or a pilot. I ended up becoming a pilot in the Marine Corps, which is a phenomenal decision. Great organization, great guys. And basically, then I want to go to business school. But along that whole way, no one ever said, hey, man, how much money do you want to make? What type of business do you want to invest in? What's your return on invested capital? Those are like the key metrics. Like, why am I going to business school? I want to do business, but no one tells me what business is. I learned that from doing real estate and from Mario, you, who's read most of Warren Buffett's memos, that business is about finding businesses that are cash cows. Because you don't need to go to business school. You don't need to go to college. All you require is literally come out of high school or in high school, start a cash cow business or work with someone who's got one and save your money and then invest in another one. By the time you're 40, you'll be retired.
Did you say high school didn't have accounting courses, or your college?
None of them had accounting courses. And I went to private.
What kind of backwater schools?
Private schools that cost money. That's the whole point. They don't get to the root of what actually business is, which is accounting. If you don't have accounting, you should not be in business. If you don't understand accounting, the basics of it, you're literally like walking in the dark. Look at how many restaurants and businesses have blown up because the guy or gal is just like spending, and they're like, "Hey, what's your margin this week?" I have no idea. Oh, watch the show Gordon Ramsay. He goes into his restaurants and helps turns them around, which are crappy margins anyways, and they just don't have a clue what they're doing. Their menu isn't right. Their food isn't. Their costs aren't on point. Their food wasting away. It's not an easy business. It's not an easy business at all. Most people don't understand the accounting. They hire an accountant. That's mistake number one. If you're going to go into business and hire an accountant, stop right now. Go and learn accounting A and B. You don't have to be accountant, but learn accounting A and B before you go into business. It'll save you a lot of time and money. I'm very adamant about that. Your thoughts, Mario?
Yeah, concurrent to add is drift into the better business models. Go down to your public library and flip through the value line investment survey and look at the industries that have higher margins and kind of drift in that direction. And oh, by the way, if you can buy or invest in those type of businesses when they're at a fair price or even a cheap price, you're going to do pretty well in life.
Yeah, and if you can't make it to the library, because in Los Angeles, a lot of the libraries have been taken over by certain individuals. I won't name who. It's not the most enjoyable experience. But if you're in a city where they've been held at bay, and you can get into a library where you can actually relax and look at the value line investment survey, do it. If you don't have time to go to the library, just simply pull up your phone or your iPad and go to Yahoo Finance and just start looking at companies, right? And when you look at these companies, look at their operating margin and look for companies that are 20% operating margin or better. When you find those companies, then download their annual report and start reading it. Do that over and over and over again. So for example, if you're going to go into the restaurant space, see if you can find a company that does a 20% margin or better. There are a bunch. They're in the franchise business. I wonder why, right? And then that's your mark. If you're in the software business, find the companies that have a 20% margin and actually make money, cash flow, right? Use these reports of all these industries that are publicly traded businesses that tell you what they're doing as your mark. That's what I learned from Mario is look at these businesses because they've already done it and then apply it to your small little business. Hit the same marks. Like this is how much I'm spending on marketing. This is how much I'm spending on sales, advertising. This is how much I'm spending on cost of goods. Mirror those big businesses and you'll do really well. Any other thoughts? Mario, thank you, man. That was a mouthful. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the listeners' time. And we look forward to connecting with the future. Thank you so much.